What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Draft Quickie, and today we are taking a look at the enigmatic Roger McQueen. And as usual, we'll look at his stats, his strengths, his playing style, projection for the draft, areas for improvement, and finally an NHL comp. In normal circumstances, McQueen should have been a full report, but because he spent the majority of the season injured and re-injured again at the end of the season, we'll go over him quicker than I would have liked. But at the same time, I got about a million things that I want to say about him, so we'll see how it goes. First thing first, McQueen is a left shot center who stands at 6'5" and weighs in at 192 pounds, which is obviously pretty light for a guy of that stature. And in terms of stats, he scored 20 points in 17 games this season, which is really not that impressive. But he also scored 51 points in 53 games last season in his draft -1. But McQueen was an October 2nd birthday, making him one of the oldest players in the draft, so a solid -1 season was to be expected. So in terms of playing style, McQueen's game is built around length, skill, and smarts. You hear his 6'5" center and you might expect his straight line, grinding type, but that's not really what you get here, or at least not entirely. McQueen's got soft hands, he got legit vision, and a sneaky good motor. Not always consistent on a nightly basis, but when he's on, he's really on. He's got the frame of a power forward, but the offensive instinct of a top line or a top 6 playmaker. For a big guy, McQueen skates really well in my opinion. Fluid strides, good edge work, and deceptive quickness. Maybe not the most mechanically sound skater out there, but he's not Bill Zone on either, so he can make it work. His top speed isn't elite, but his stride is efficient, and he uses length to cover a lot of ice quickly. The potential for a transitional player is high end in my opinion. He's more slippery than explosive, using smart positioning and subtle shift to create space. And one of the most impressive thing is how well he can move east to west or west to east for his size. He uses cutbacks and stutter steps and delays to draw defenders in, then find seams or dish it off. He's not a burner by any means, but he's elusive, especially down low. The offensive game is where McQueen shines the most in my opinion. He's a pass-first playmaker with a great feel for spacing and timing. He's the guy who makes his line mates better, drawing in pressure, manipulating defenders, hitting guys in stride. McQueen's offensive toolkit is one of the most well-rounded in the draft, not necessarily elite in one area, but really strong across the board. What makes him stand out is how he processes the game. He's always one move ahead, and it shows in the way that he reads pressure, anticipates passing lane, and makes subtle adjustments just to buy time. McQueen thrives in the offensive zone cycle, using his long reach and his calm puck control to extend possessions. Whether he's below the goal line or working the half wall, McQueen is patient and doesn't really force plays out there, and that composure or patience lets him wait for seams to open before making a play. I'd say he's on the deceptive side, and he's somewhat surgical in the way he distributes the puck. He's capable of slipping pucks through tight coverage with slick backhand passes or threading cross-ice feeds through sticks. He's especially dangerous in delayed transition. He'll hold up at the blue line, wait for support, and then make a quick touch pass that leads directly to a scoring chance. His timing on zone entries is always really sharp in my opinion, and can carry it himself or drop it back to a trailing teammate without losing a stride. Off the puck, he supports the play really well. He's not just coasting out there. He follows the play into the high danger areas or position himself to be either a shooting or a tipping option for his teammates. He also has a great feel for the flow of the game. He'll fade into the soft areas to give his teammates some space or slide into the slot for a quick one-timer. His shot might not blow you away right now, but it's got upside in my opinion. There's a deceptive release, especially off the curl or when pulling the puck in tight. He can fire off a quick wrister with almost no wind up and pick corners from mid-range. He's not the guy sniping from the circles every night, but he doesn't need a lot of time or space to get the puck on net. With more strength and confidence, that should become a legitimate weapon in my opinion. I also think that he can run a power play. He's got the IQ and the puck control to quarterback from the wall or rotate through the middle. He doesn't really panic under pressure, and he can break down penalty kills by drawing out defenders and creating 2-on-1s. In short, McQueen's offensive game is built on feel, patience, and creativity. He's not a flashy player, but he's incredibly effective. He doesn't just create points, he drives possession and makes his line mates better with his high-end vision and puck touch. He has strong puck protection and great hands in tight. McQueen is not just an offensive threat, Defensively, he shows strong habits and solid positioning, especially for a teenager with offensive responsibilities like him. He reads the play really well, and he's active in a defensive zone, not just a passenger waiting for the breakout. He uses his reach effectively to disrupt passing lanes and create turnovers. He already played on the penalty kill, and he was taking key face-off for Brandon, so he was trusted in multiple situations with the team. There's definitely room to grow here, especially in terms of defensive intensity shift to shift, but the IQ, the tools, and the willingness are all there, and once he fills out his frame and adds some strength, he could become a really tough matchup in all three zones. When it comes to physicality and compete level, this is probably the most underrated part of McQueen's game. He's not a bulldozer, but he's physically involved, and when he turns it on, he's just really hard to contain. McQueen isn't the kind of power forward who throws crushing hits and gets into scrums every shift, but he uses his frame effectively in more subtle and impactful ways. There's a quiet assertiveness to his game, especially when he's protecting the puck and battling along the board. At 6'5", he's already tough to knock off balance, and once he adds more mass, it'll be a nightmare to contain in the offensive zone. He's strong on his stick, tough in puck battles. He has no problem fighting through contacts when driving to the net. You'll see him take defenders wide, drop the shoulder, and push his way inside. Even if it means getting bumped around, he doesn't shy away from traffic, and in fact, he thrives when the games gets a little gritty. In puck retrieval situations, he gets in early and uses his length to box out defenders or poke the puck free. He's also smart in the way he angles players off and taking away time and space without overcommitting one way or the other. And what's especially promising is that his compete level seems to rise when the pressure is on. Late in games or in tight scores, he shows a little extra fire. He'll grind down low, he'll battle for second efforts, engage physically when it matters most. He's not a punisher by any means. He does sometimes, but not all the time. But he's a possession-heavy forward who plays with strength, maturity, and presence. The big question is whether he can bring that physical edge more consistently. There are shifts where he could assert himself maybe a little bit more or initiate contact a little bit earlier, but the foundation is there, and once the confidence and the physical maturity catches up, he could become a force along the wall or around the crease. McQueen has a lot going for him, but like any prospect, and especially the ones that get injured more than most, there are things to refine. Things like strength and physical maturity. At 6'5" and under 200 pounds, he still needs to fill out, and a stronger lower body will help him win more battles and become harder to knock off the puck. Consistency shift after shift. There are stretches where he fades a bit, especially when he's not involved early in the game. Finding that extra gear every night is probably the next step. He's also a natural playmaker, but sometimes he's a bit too unselfish. He needs to shoot more and use his size to get to the dirty areas with a little bit more consistency. And while his skating is still solid, that first step acceleration could improve to help him separate from defenders and push the pace a little bit more. In conclusion, McQueen is a high-end package with size, power, skills, and hockey sense. The issue is all those injuries and the significance of those injuries. He missed time last year, he missed significant time again this season, and he ended the season with another injury in the playoff. It too often reminds me of players like Kenan Lindstrom, who didn't play a single game this season, or players like Nolan Patrick, or even Gabe Vilardi, who had back issues in his draft year and took probably a little longer than most people expected to become the player they envisioned. And talking about Vilardi, he's actually my NHL comp for Roger McQueen. I think the style are pretty similar. He looks a little bit like a hybrid between Vilardi and Thomas Hertl or something around that. Personally, I think he will fall on draft day. I'm not sure how much teams are comfortable drafting him in the top 10 with his medical history. It all depends on what those injuries were and if they were connected together. But when he's on, McQueen is a top 5, maybe even top 3 player in this draft. But many or some off games, especially the ones after the injury and the history, makes it very difficult to project him that high in the top 5 or something around that. So obviously this was a fail to be a quickie, but it is what it is. Thanks for watching. Maybe subscribe if you like the things that I do, and see you in the next one. Peace.